With the new 1.10 firmware update, it's now possible to sequence portamento or note slides on the Syntakt. This is very awesome, and I'm happy Elektron added that feature so quickly after the initial release. On the one hand, we now no longer need the LFO workaround for portamento, but this also means it's time to see how close we can get to an actual 303-style bassline with the Syntakt. Hello everyone, this is... I'll pick one of the analog tracks. On track 11, there's already a dual VCO synth machine loaded by default, which will do fine. The 303 has a single oscillator that is switchable between a sawtooth and a square wave. So I'll choose an oscillator configuration that gives me a sawtooth wave, like 19, and I'll shift the balance completely in favor of that sawtooth oscillator, which mutes the other one. No detuning. At the moment, the notes ring out for a bit too long. So, let's go to the amp envelope and give them a shorter release. Not all the way down, or else it might become too clicky. Just a tad more. I also want the notes to start loud and then decay down to a lower level, so I'll adjust the decay and sustain as well. I've already programmed a sequence of 16 notes. Sounds familiar somehow, yet utterly butchered. The first move to making this sound right is the note length. If you program single notes on a 303, they're not full-length 16th notes like these. A 303 gives you shorter staccato notes, which are only about half as long. That's a really important ingredient of the 303 sound. So, let's set the default note length for the entire pattern to half of that, a 32nd. If this is going to sound anything like a 303, then we need a filter on this raw oscillator. The filter is already set to low pass by default. That's the one we want. But we have to turn down the cutoff frequency to actually hear it, about halfway. And give it a good dose of resonance. Now we're getting that nasal quality. But the filter is static. We want some movement in there. Instead of going oh 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 oh, we want it to go ow 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 ow. And that can be achieved pretty easily by just adding an envelope to the filter. This envelope can modify the filter cutoff over time. The envelope has no attack, so this change will be there immediately, right from the start of the note. And then it will decay back down until you just hear the filter cutoff that is actually programmed. Listen to how this envelope becomes audible as I turn up the depth. Let's reduce the decay a bit. As a finishing touch, we're going to add some key tracking to the filter. That's hidden here in the sound menu. Setup. Now the filter cutoff frequency is always slightly adjusted each time a note is played, depending on how high or low that note is. I don't know if the filter in the 303 actually has key tracking, but this just sounds a bit better to me. First, let me quickly explain on a separate pattern how portamento works on the Syntakt. On the 303, if you want a note to bend towards the following note, you just put a slide modifier on the first note. On the Syntakt, this logic is reversed. If you activate portamento on a note, it will slide towards that note, from whatever note was last played. So, if we want this first note to slide to the second note, we activate portamento on the second step. The slide is now there, but the two notes don't connect yet. These are still two separate 30-second notes. On a 303, they would automatically merge because of the slide modifier. But here, we have to lengthen the first note to a 16th, so it actually touches the second note. Back to our pattern. Let's quickly program the slides. Activate portamento on the destination note, and lengthen the starting note so they both connect. And so on and so forth. The very first note in the sequence also gets portamento, but you'll only hear this when the pattern loops, not on the first play, just like on the 303. This still doesn't sound quite right though, and that's because the filter and amp envelopes reset. Whenever a note with portamento is reached, the envelopes start again and interrupt the sound. You don't want that to happen. You want the filter and amp envelopes to continue all the way through to the very end of the slide. That setting is called legato, and it can also be found in the sound setup menu. That's more like it. Now the notes that overlap only get a single filter envelope. By the way, you can download this Syntakt project file on our Patreon, along with the updated cheat sheet for the Syntakt and lots of other stuff. If you want to tweak the sound, you can pretty much do everything right here on the filter page. Just play with the cutoff frequency, resonance, and envelope depth. Next, let's tackle the 303 accents. We'll start with step 5. I'll raise the filter envelope depth. That makes it chirp a bit more. But it also needs more volume, so I'll go into the trig page and raise the velocity to maximum for that step. But that's still not enough. It's not much louder than the unaccented steps. So, since we can't increase the velocity of the accented steps, we'll just have to lower the velocity of every other step in the pattern. You can do that very easily by reducing the default velocity. Now every step whose velocity isn't parameter locked follows suit. Let's quickly program the other accents. Max out the velocity and increase the filter envelope depth for more chirpiness. Now the only thing that's missing is some distortion. The onboard overdrive on the Syntakt is way too tame for the job, so we'll have to get some help. Now you know how to 303 on a Syntakt. Hope this tutorial was useful to you. If so, give this video a thumbs up. We're always happy to read your comments, so don't hesitate to leave one below. A big shout out to all of our patrons. Thanks to you, we can keep making these videos. Since we already played the funk, let's see if anyone recognizes this one.